Welcome to the Fantasy Football Clown Show. I'm the Fantasy Clown, Ed. Coming to you tonight just to talk about trades. One of the things that I've been really amazed about here over the last couple of days following week 2 is how aggressive each manager is about trading. And it really made me go back and look at some past things that have happened just to see, where things are. Why do we make trades? And I want to make sure that I'm not talking out of both sides of my mouth, but I really don't think it's the time to trade. So after week 2, I don't think we know if our team is a win now team. That's another term I see thrown around a lot, or if it's a rebuild team. We have a better idea of rebuild teams right now, but really a lot of things can happen. Just before last Monday night, if you had Nick Chubb in your lineup, you might have thought, hey, I'm a win now team. And after last Monday night, if you didn't have Jerome Ford in your lineup, you might have went from a win now team to a rebuilding team. And that was only one injury on Monday night of week 2. So I guess why I give that example is because I don't know if we know. Like, there's going to be teams that I did some of my records, and there's going to be teams that I start 0-2 that are going to make the playoffs. And if I look at last year, my 6 seed teams won, and some of my first seed teams didn't win. Now, I'm playing leagues like some of you guys, like the Clownhead tournament leagues, where top 2 teams make it to the finals or make it into that tournament. And you say, well, every win matters. And I did look back at that and say, okay, yeah, you do need about 9 wins. You need to go 9-5 to make it to with a reasonable expectation, and that doesn't guarantee you anything to get to that tournament. And once you get into that tournament, anything can happen, and I would agree with that as well. What I would say is that if your team can't, without one extra piece, can't win in week 2, week 3, week 4, you're probably not as likely to win there. So selling the future for just a chance will set the franchise back for a long time. And of course, I'm speaking to the Dynasty audience, but I would say even a redraft team, it's important to not panic at this state. So where I've gone with that is I haven't made big waiver fab budget claims, even with the people that are out there. Puka Nacua, everybody's spending money on him. Jerome Ford, people are spending money on him. If there's guys who are available, I get it. I was buying guys like Reynolds, guys like Browning, but $2-3 of $100 budget, nothing crazy, because while I didn't want them to go for free, if I didn't get them and somebody bid $20 or $30 in fab, that kind of made me happy, because I'm like, well, that was 20 or 30% that's down the tube. Now, if somebody bid 4, actually, that was kind of frustrating for me, because I didn't get them and they didn't spend enough of their fab to really take them out of contention later in the year when the real player that could help me really comes into play, or the real player that maybe is coming into play that could hurt them. So let's fast forward. I wanted to kind of give you a breakdown of the why behind it. And I see a lot of people say, hey, should I make a trade? Is this trade good? And so some common just things that I use to, and I didn't make these up. So important to give the credit to the smart people that came up with these things. I just kind of copied them because they resonated with me. And a lot of different ways to run a team. I'm kind of telling you how I run my 75 teams. So I do have enough teams that I do think that this is a pattern that works. But you go into the season with a plan, right? And you execute on the plan. And does this trade take me further towards the plan? Now, that plan can take different shapes. And it's not like I'm going to plan to win. I'm going to plan to lose. I'm going to plan to play defensive. No, I'm going to continually get better, and I'm going to analyze how I'm getting better. Now, how does that look? That can look a lot of different ways. And I wanted to pull up some of the trades. And so while I say I don't make trades, that's as a rule. Doesn't mean I never make a trade at this time of the year. But I was looking back, and 2 days ago, I made a trade. And I wanted to pull up all the trades that I've made recently so I could get an idea. And I guess you're going to see that I don't have to win every trade. That's not important. And it's not important if I lose every trade. It's important that I furthered the goal. So the first trade we're going to look at was on 9/18. And basically, I was doing a cost-effective, cost enforcement. I bought a starting quarterback for a 4th-round pick. So while I don't, as a rule, want to trade any picks in 2024 at this time of the year, I felt like a fourth wasn't going to hurt me. I've looked back and I've said, you know what, if I'm missing a fourth, I've never said, oh man, I just need another fourth. Now, I don't make a lot of draft day trades, so I knew that not having that fourth was means I wouldn't have a shot at Badgett or a quarterback or maybe even Jerome Ford, who I got last year in a lot of fourth rounds. But I might pick him up at some point. Somebody get tired of that player and they drop him, so I might get him anyway. And I have enough teams that I thought I could just do a fourth for a known commodity that may help somebody else. And I'm going to make sure that if anybody's going to get a starting quarterback for a fourth round pick, that's me. So that's why I made a trade. Now, what's interesting is that was on the 16th. We have to go to before the season started till my trade before that. And here I was kind of like, okay, the season's about to start. I've got Derrick Henry. I have a lot of running backs on this team. And I was also in a jam on this team. I was 19 players over the limit on rookie draft time. And I pared it down. And what was making it really hard was last year I was 14 players over the limit and had to pare it down. So I had really gotten real skinny on basically I had all first and second round picks. And this team has got guys like Trevor Lawrence and Joe Burrow, who I can't drop. And it's got, Treylon Burks, Garrett Wilson, and Drake London and those kind of receivers. So it's full of that kind of stuff. And so I thought this was a way for me to pay forward another first, get another first round pick in the 24 draft. And I move on from Henry, and I still have guys like Kenneth Walker, and I believe I actually have Bijan Robinson. And so I have got a young kind of thing. And I did have to punt a fourth to get this done, but it fulfilled the roster spot that I was trying to eliminate of an older player, not a younger player. And I'm getting an additional first for the future. So that's why I went that way. Maybe you could get more for Henry. I was just feeling the crunch that it was time to make a move because I was going to have to. I ended up cutting the best player I cut on this team was DJ Chark, and basically he went out the day after. But I needed to get Bijan Robinson into my lineup on that Thursday night, so it was basically like, or maybe it was Gibbs, I guess. I had to get in the lineup there on that night, so I needed to have a clean lineup for that. This looks like a trade I made with Justin, and probably works for him. And I knew that he did not like, basically he didn't like Russell Wilson, and so I kind of knew that. But this trade will probably age pretty well for him. Like he did okay. I got some older players in this, and this is a 10-team league, so I wanted to have more proven commodities. I thought that Russell Wilson was going to have a decent year, and so I pared Russell Wilson for Sam Howell. I thought, well, the staying power of a veteran quarterback, I might be in good shape. It looks like this is going to age well for him. Like he's going to make out pretty well in this trade, and that's good. I don't need to win every trade. I was one player over the roster limit, so this got me down to the limit without having to drop somebody. And yeah, I picked up a fourth, but that was just to try to make it better. And then I felt like I was getting the best receiver in the trade. And so that's going to be a startable receiver for me when he's healthy, and he's not healthy now. So it hasn't aged as well as it was back on the 3rd of September, but it's a trade I made in a 10-team league. And I think he'd be pretty happy with that trade right now. And I'm still pretty happy with it. Like I don't look back and say, well, what was I thinking, or why did I do it? This is one of my trades of Sam Howell. So, I was really kind of trading Sam Howell at the beginning of the year. And here, this trade was in a Clownheads league, in a tournament league, and I traded this to the first place team. So, thinking about how this, or the why behind it, it's a 3-point PPR tight end. I was short a tight end, so I needed Cade Otton to start. He was a key to this thing. And then the first round pick was a key to this thing for a quarterback, right? I noticed who had Jalen Hurts and who had Justin Fields is the same owners, and I thought that getting their handcuffs made some sense to kind of, they were low on quarterbacks, so having those two included made sense to me. Charlie Jones is I had roster space, so he was worth having, and let's see what happens with him next year. And the third and the fourth don't mean anything except for they were the only picks that this owner had. So basically, the first round pick in 2025 is going to be dependent on the record of 2024. And if I clean out all the rookie picks, then that means there's 0 shots of getting better and younger in that 24 draft without making a trade and trading one of the pieces that he has right now. So it was more of a play to make sure this 2025 first could be better and that there wasn't any luck involved here with these other picks. So that's kind of why I made the trade. And so I think it's helpful to understand the why behind it. As you can see here, this is all right before the season started. I was kind of liquidating older assets or assets that I was afraid might have gotten to peak value. And so Derrick Henry. And so before the trade of Cam Akers to Minnesota, these guys would all probably make a lot of fun of me, but I was basically trying to get younger with a bell cow back and then get a little extra piece just in case it didn't work for me. And I was just getting younger. That was the whole purpose of this trade. It wasn't to try to get more points this year. This wasn't a redraft trade. This was just about age, 28 to 24. This was a 28 to 24. And because I didn't think Cam Akers was as good, I needed to have a dart throw to go along with it just to make sure that I was going to be okay and wasn't going to be, hurt. And then having said that, so sometimes, you go the other way with things. You say to yourself, hey, I'm gonna go pick up Derrick Henry. Like if I think that he's just going absolutely too cheap, we're going to go and get that. So, and I didn't feel like I was giving away much in the Kareem Hunt. So there was some idea that he might sign somewhere and that person wanted to handcuff. And I just kind of took advantage of that situation and, reacted to somebody's, impulse here. Actually, I guess I said that the wrong way. I actually got Kareem Hunt there. And so I guess I was playing a dart throw, but the second and third were the things that I got there. And the reason I got Kareem Hunt is I said, who are you going to drop? And he told me Kareem Hunt. I'm like, well, then throw him in the deal. Like that's sometimes what you do to make the deal work. But I would have probably been on either side of that trade. Like there was a purpose there for either side of that trade for me. I actually prefer the side of getting rid of Derrick Henry just because I want to get younger. I'm always looking to get younger, second and third, accomplish that goal as well. And so I'm always looking to do that. This was a trade where I was trying to reduce my number of players. One tight end league. That's why I basically sold Luke Musgrave. I drafted him in the third, sold him for a second. It was an instant profit, and I didn't. And I have a lot of tight ends, so it didn't feel like anything that was bad. So, here's a trade where I was basically getting Kyler for Sam Howell. So, I'm able to sell a commodity that's unknown for a commodity that should be better in the future. And that's kind of where it is. And so I'm not going to go through all these trades, but I guess I wanted you guys to get a feel for the why behind and the time frame that I'm trading. So as you notice, all these were preseason trades. They weren't trades in startup drafts. They weren't trades at times that I was like saying to the league mates that I have, oh, I hate my draft. I don't think I made quality picks in the draft because I really think that the picks I make in the draft have purpose. I don't just wing it and say, I'm just going to pick a guy for a guy. Like I'm always looking at the board and I'm always making a pick that I think is going to affect the rest of the draft board. And the reason I want thirds and seconds isn't for the player I'm going to draft, it's to control the draft board. And the goal is to kind of force other teams into taking players ahead of where they should, which means that the other players drop to me where they shouldn't. And the best example I can give to that is I have a lot of Bijan Robinson shares, and I had very few 101 picks. And so what that means is people did not take Bijan Robinson at 101. Now, you might say, well, Anthony Richardson's better in 2-quarterback league, over a super flex league and all those things. But I'm going to tell you that I had Bijan Robinson on my board at 101. That hasn't changed. I just took him, and if I could get him at pick 2, pick 3, I was taking him every time. It didn't matter anything else, and I felt like that was a miss. And it's kind of that attitude that I have. And so, Zay Flowers I had as my third best receiver. And so if you were taking tight ends or anything that I could do to influence the board to get you to take tight ends ahead of that, because I look back and I said the first round tight ends. Typically, you can buy cheaper at a later time. It's not that I think all of them are bad. It's that I think you can always buy them cheaper, i.e. Kyle Pitts, when on draft day back in 21, you would have had to pay a couple first-round picks for Kyle Pitts. Right now, if you threw a 2024 first to Kyle Pitts, you probably get him almost in every league. Like that's how crazy there's always a time. I always say there's always a time. There was a time that that I sold Kyle Pitts for Hawkinson. There was a time I bought Kyle Pitts for Hawkinson. So like there's always a time that you can get players. Before the season, I was selling Garrett Wilson, and we didn't get to any of my Garrett Wilson trades, and I guess I'd love to pull some of them up as well. But there's always a time to buy and sell players, and you want to just always be doing things at a profit. But right now, as we're right here in this moment in time, after week 2, before week 3, I think it's important to be patient, not spend fab money, not go trade, because the people that are trading right now are all doing panic trades, and they're all doing these emotionally charged trades. And if you want to be involved in those trades, that's fine, but be involved as the person just kind of saying, oh yeah, I have that player. And so you always want to have the player that other people want. I guess I can remember twice in 2 years. So there's been 2 years, one time each year, that I've went and aggressively tried to overpay for a player because I needed the player. And one was I needed Rashid Shaheed. He was playing a Sunday morning game, and I didn't have any way to get any additional receivers that were any good because somebody was out or something, and I was like panicking to get a receiver in there. And that was going to be the difference of whether I won and lost. And I think I offered a first-round pick, and I couldn't get it done. But I was willing to way overpay for Rashid Shaheed, but it was going to get me a win week 10, and it would have got me a win in week 10. And the other time that I almost overpaid was I needed a kicker, Carlson, on a Monday night, and I offered a second and a third-round pick, and it didn't get it done, and that kicker would have gotten me a win again. But beyond that, those were 2 times I actually did not make money in the league, and it was all based on not being able to make that move, and I came strong for those players. So I actually had it all gauged right. But other than that, I don't remember ever feeling that I had to make a trade. I remember I made a trade with Trader Dan one time that I came aggressive after Zeke Elliott, and I did not win the league. And I still felt like, okay, I traded a first away. And so my analyzation on that was I was frustrated the next year when I didn't win the league and I didn't have the first round pick. But realistically, I won the week with him, so it actually made sense. So the logic behind the trade I could deal with, but I was really frustrated in myself because the next year when I was drafting rookie picks, I was the guy without a pick, and it just didn't make sense, and because the league didn't go cash positive for me. And so that's kind of how I look at things. It's not good or bad. Trades aren't good or bad. Trades aren't win or not win. Trades are, was it profitable for me or not profitable for me? Now, I recognize some people play fantasy football just for the joy of it and for the fun of it. The money doesn't matter. That's not the point. Now, but if you're like me, like you want to profit from this thing. You don't want it to be a cost center for yourself, and it actually matters to you whether you make a profit. Like you don't want to just throw money at the problem and not see anything come back your way. Then I would say that this is the emotional time of trading, the emotional time of picking up, and just I write a lot down as well. So I want to give you guys some idea of maybe some of the research I was looking back over. So in week 1 last year, the 2 biggest waiver wire pickups last year in the kind of the clown head environment where everything's deep was Hilliard, the running back for Tennessee, and he didn't amount to anything by the end of the year. And then another big pickup was Robbie Chosen-Anderson from the Carolina Panthers, and he ended the year in Arizona. Like it didn't even end the year in the same place. Like it was just so different, where he ended up. And then guys like, that started the year slow became something like Isaiah Pacheco was a waiver wire pickup later in the year in those kind of leagues. Week 1 last year, Zach Wilson was hurt, and so Joe Flacco played quarterback the first 3 weeks of the year. So we look back at that and we're like, oh, wow, I forgot Joe Flacco played for the Jets. We're thinking, hey, Zach Wilson had a whole year starting last year. No, not really. He was actually didn't start the year. He was hurt, and Joe Flacco was the guy. And so there's a lot of that if you look back at history. And so you realize that this year we haven't even had the quarterback injuries we did last year yet. So, looking at like week 3, we might have a lot more injuries. And I'm telling people that are asking me, hey, should I make a trade for quarterback? Not right now. Like it's not about whether you got enough or didn't get enough, but right now we have no bye weeks. And in most leagues, if you have a lot of quarterbacks, that means other people don't have a lot of quarterbacks. So even if they sell them cheap, you don't want to be the person selling cheap. And at some point, other people will have to decide, do I want to pay up for it or do I want to lose? And that's really comes down to the option. I was looking over one of my opponents that has just Joe Burrow as the only starting quarterback on his team. It's a super flex league. And he plays me in week 7. And with that one quarterback, and he's starting like Allen Robinson in the super flex, and Joe Burrow's on bye. So I'm just kind of waiting for that matchup. Like in week 7, if I'm 3-3, I'm probably going to be 4-3 after that. And I always look at it like this: if you get to 8 wins in a season, 8-6, get you to the playoffs. That's really all you're trying to do is how fast can you get 8 wins. So if you look at the team after 4 weeks, that's when I usually look at it. And then I look at it again after 8, and then I look to say, okay, when's the trade deadline in this league? And that's when I look at the team a third time and analyze. So after 4 weeks, I look at the team and I say, okay, is this team realistically does have a shot to win? We've seen a month's worth of football with this team. Is this team even relevant? 0-4, tough, right? It's time to rebuild. It's time to probably take a shot. I've actually made the playoffs with the 0-4 team, but it's not as likely. 1-3, I'm not that worried, honestly, because a 3-game winning streak, and the thing is 4-3 and it has a winning record, and that's that's something that can happen. You go 3-1 the next, 1-3 and then 3-1. We call that 4-4 after 8 games, and that's kind of why I like to check in after 8 games. And sometimes my teams with the bye week and having heavy quarterbacks, they do well in the bye weeks because they have quarterbacks and other people don't. So something to always keep in mind when you do that 4-week check-in after week 4. And I actually take it pretty seriously. I take some vacation time from my job to make sure I go through 75 teams and make sure I have an idea of where each team stands. And I really try to analyze how are they this year compared to last year at the quarter pole. And I look at the season as four quarters, right? So the quarter pole, I'm looking at that season, like we have the first quarter is week 4. And then after week 8, I'm looking again. Now I've seen 3, I've basically seen 4 of the bye weeks out of the way. And so we have lighter games. How does my team perform now during that? And then also add the first month of the season onto it. And now we're about at Halloween. Like, just think about the time frame. So now we're not at Thanksgiving yet, but we're at the Halloween. We have a good idea of what teams are. So now I actually know those teams for the playoff run. What do I have? Like, what does my team look like? Who's going to return from the IR that was on the preseason IR that didn't return after week 4 or after week 5? Like, some of these players can return, but doesn't mean they will return. And so I feel like after week 8, I have a good feel for what does my team look like. Teams 2 and 6, I feel like it's a rebuild right now. I'm looking to aggressively older players. I'm looking to move them a little cheaper than I would, but I also have a better handle now on what the picks that I'm trading for really are. I don't have to guess if they're going to be good or bad or indifferent. I now know, I have a good idea of what the other teams are too in the league. So I know what the picks are, what I'm trading for. I have a better idea now after 8 weeks in. So then I'm looking from that point to the trade deadline, whether that be week 10, week 11, week 12, week 13. I have all those trade deadlines. And that's going to be the next time I look in at that team. But at that point, I'm going to go. Now, once we're right before the week before the trade deadline, if the team has a chance to win, I'm one player short. I'm like, geez, if I get 3 wins in a row here, I'm going to be set up for a bye. I'm going to be set up to just make it into the playoffs. I'm then going to make a decision at that moment. If the right piece comes, I'm willing to get rid of my first round pick in 2024. And I'm going to have to be really sure that the player puts me over the top. The player, even if it doesn't go perfect for me, that I'm going to make money on the thing. Unless I just basically have a 0 in the playoffs, I'm going to make money. Then I'm going to be really apt to make that trade, and I'm going to go strong. I'm going to overpay. Like, so if Garrett Wilson's having a year, and I have a way to package Jerry Jeudy and Treylon Burks for Garrett Wilson, I'm going to go. I'm going. I'm going to go. I'm going to take 2 young assets. I'm going to go get the stud. And would I do that at week 2? Nope, absolutely not. I don't know. For all I know, Garrett Wilson might be not as good as Treylon Burks. Garrett Wilson might get hurt. Treylon Burks might be healthy. But at week 12, when I'm making that decision, I only need to get through week 13 and week 14. Like I need 2 weeks more. And I feel like at that moment, I'm going to take my shot. Like now I'm going to go and I'm going to be like, I'm just looking for an extra 6 or 8 points. And because I know that's going to be enough to put me over the edge. So I'm going to consolidate the assets. I've gotten through the buys. And I know where the injuries are on my team. I know what I'm dealing with. And if one of my guys gets hurt, that's a chance I take. But I've only got 2 weeks to really mess up the whole chemistry of my team and to let the situation like Chubb happen to my team. Like Barkley happened to my team. Like Cam Akers getting traded happened to my team. Like at that point, a lot of the noise of the preseason is out of the way. We have a good handle on where each back fits, where each receiver is in the pecking order, what their target share is. Like I know what I'm trading for. Like I now can use the knowledge of being in the know to my advantage to get and build a good team. So I'm going to make my trades then. So if you were to look at my trade, you see, okay, 1 trade in season so far, a bunch of trades right before the season to get my roster down to a spot, a fair amount of trades in the preseason, and yet I'm not a very big trader. If you think of 75 teams, I haven't made 75 trades, so I'm not averaging one trade per team. I'm going to hopefully be somewhere around 4 trades per team this year. Going to be somewhere around the 300 trade mark, and if you think 365 days, I'm not going to have a trade a day. But here we are, the first month of the season. I'm not making even close to, I'm only making 1 trade in this month, kind of thing since the season starts. Probably in the first 4 weeks, I'm going to make 2 or 3 more. I'm going to keep it to a minimum unless there's something that I'm like, oh, you know what, I will be frustrated that I didn't offer that amount for that player. So, I have a couple feelers out now. I saw some people go on the block, and I'm like, well, they're like, well, what would you give me for them? And I'm like, well, not much. I just want to make sure that I don't see something go through and be like, man, I would have paid double that, and really actually would have paid double that, not more than just talk. So that's kind of what I'm doing now to make trades. But, I would caution everybody, don't just trade to trade, because that's where you're going to make a lot of mistakes. Let the other league mates in your league trade to trade, because it's kind of like gambling and you're just being the casino and you're just going to take a piece of the action at the end. You're the DraftKings of this whole mess. You're just taking a cut out of let them all play their games, and you're just going to take a cut at the end because, they're going to make mistakes. If they trade enough, they'll make a mistake. And you can just watch it and be entertained if you'd like. But, yeah, you're going to just basically be able to see the trades unfold. And that's going to make you a better fantasy player. No doubt in my mind that patience, persistence, going with a game plan, those have all been things that have really enhanced my game. And you might say, oh, I hear a lot that my teams will never win except for when they do. And then they're like, I guess they won, and maybe it was luck. But it wouldn't be luck if it happens a lot in the same year. Like that can't be luck. And really it just comes down to the simple fact that I'm very patient, kind of stubborn. I listen to what other people think, but it feels like noise until it's not. It's got to fit the plan. And even when other people have said, hey, you traded that too cheap, as long as I can justify why I did it, then it makes sense to me. That's really it. Like I can't get caught up in what other people think or how they think I should manage my team. And I would caution you, don't take what I think and should I trade this guy for this guy? What I think really doesn't matter. It's how do you view that player, and does that player enhance you towards your goal? Like it's got to be going towards the goal of whatever your goal is. And ultimately, yes, you want to win a championship, but what's your roadmap to get there? And you got to be willing to go off of the exit ramps every once in a while and get gas and change it up and put new tires on. But you've got to be heading in that general direction. I get concerned when my teams maybe finish 7 and we get 7 and 7 for the 14, and then the next year they finish 5 and 9. I get really concerned. If my team finishes 3 and 11 and then finishes 5 and 9 and then finishes 7 and 7 and didn't make the playoffs any of those years, but I see that progression of getting better every year, I'm very confident. And I look and I say, oh, geez, the 3 first-round picks next year, right on the plan, right? Everything's working the right way. I do have a league that I actually finished in the playoffs, finished second place in year 2. So finished last in year 1, finished in the playoffs in second place in year 2. And then in year 3, went to 5th place. And I'm like, what our fifth pick in the draft. And I'm like, what the hell just happened? Like, and that made me think that, you know what, that second place finish was lucky. And I've really looked now in year 4 in that particular league and said, okay, I'm going to put a focus on where my weaknesses were. And that was an IDP league. And I didn't really focus on IDP last year. It was just not where I was spread really thin, and I didn't focus on IDP. And so this year I've kind of committed. I have 4 IDP teams, and I'm expecting that I'm putting effort into it. I don't know how I'm going to do, and I guess at the end of the year we'll look at my 4 IDP teams and see how I did. But I'm at least putting effort into making sure that I'm starting quality people on the defensive side of the ball that are getting me a lot of points. And however, I'm still not making trades for those guys. Like, there's guys in the league that are trying to always trade me IDP pieces, and I feel like the waiver wire is flush full of those guys. So why buy something that I can get for free is my attitude. And in one of the leagues that I'm speaking of, I have a ton of quarterbacks. I've got a ton of receivers, a little bit light on running backs, and I have high-end tight ends, and we only start one, so it doesn't matter. And, you know, so really I'm just light on running backs, which is the most volatile position that there is. And so I'm not really willing to give up my first-round pick here. That's a good example until I see what my team is. Now, I'm 1-1. I kind of might have gotten lucky on the first win, but I played tough playoff teams in both weeks. So from last year, so we'll see what happens. You know, I'm going to ride it out. I'm going to see where it is after week 4. Like, that's kind of goes back to that. Like, let's see where the record is at week 4. I know it won't be worse than 1-3. I know at that point, and I still think the team has a chance. And it kind of goes to the adage on that team. I have Pat Mahomes, so I always have a chance as long as I have Pat Mahomes. He's not hurt. And you know, really, that's kind of how I'm going to roll that team out. I've got Tua, just until he gets a concussion, he's playing really good football. So, I mean, I have basically 2 quarterbacks that I can start and don't have to worry about who I have behind them, because those 2 are always the starters until they're not. And so, you know, that's kind of what my attitude is there. And my receivers, I have kind of all these middling guys that I'd say are between 8 and 14. And, you know, I never know which 2 to start. So that's always a problem. And so I would also caution you there. Don't have a whole lot of start-sit options either. You know, like when it's way too mind-screwing whether you should start receiver 7 in a given week or receiver 9 in a given week. Like that if you look at their projected points, they're like fractions apart. So take away those options for yourself. Now, don't put yourself in a position where you've traded away all your options and now you don't have any depth when you have an injury. But give yourself clear-cut guys that are, you know, almost scrubs and duds, you know, scrubs and stars approach where you have great top-end players. And so I guess this has become more roster construction and how I run my team during the course of the year. But I guess the biggest message I would say to you guys is patience, and don't get caught up in the trading this guy for this guy. Get caught up in, why am I looking to make this move? Does this move make me better? Is this the best time for the move? Is this the most likelihood that this is where I'm going to get top end, value back? I don't ever want to lose money on a particular player. So if I drafted him in the second round and I'm not getting a first round, then why did I bother drafting him in the second round? If he's not going to help me and I'm going to sell him for a second round, then I got to have a different purpose for what it was even the purpose of the pick. And so I guess that's what I would say is make your decisions with purpose. And then it's not about the player. It's about how does it flow the league and how are you able to control your team in the given league. And so points are better on your bench than your opponent's lineup. So if you can monopolize positions, that's going to help you, because those monopolies will allow you to create imbalances, which will then make people to panic and they will make mistakes. And so this is about really kind of playing defensive and allowing others to make mistakes. And you don't have to do a lot. You don't have to be right or wrong. You just have to sit back and allow them to make impulsive mistake moves, and you get to capitalize and cash in the check. So that's kind of my parting words. And I just wanted to kind of come out some of the things that I see just in all the chats across all the discords that I wanted to just share. You know, like I see all these trade questions, and to me, it comes down to, does it make my team better? And why does it make my team better? And if I say I don't know, that has the word no, and so it's a no. And probably most of the trades are a no unless they're a yes. And if they're a yes, then it's great, but you don't need me to tell you that it's a yes. You don't need anybody else to tell you it's a yes because you know it's a yes. And you don't really need anybody's confirmation because the confirmation of the trade is really in, did you cash a check? Like it really matters, did you make money in that league? Like then all the trades were great. If you made money in the league, every trade you made was great. If you didn't make money in the league, every trade you made didn't make any sense unless you make money the next year in the league. Like, so, think about it like that. Like if you're playing redraft, the trade only makes sense if you made money. The trade didn't make any sense if you didn't make money. It's that simple. Like if it didn't make you money, if you're playing a pay league, then it was not a good trade. It didn't make sense in the end. And it just means that you went through a time wasting experience or a time utilizing experience is what it did for you. So hopefully that helps. Leave your comments in the comment section. I just thought I'd do this video, have a little bit of fun with it tonight. And I'm anxious to publish it, about trades, about roster construction, about just kind of managing the team throughout the year. So look forward to hitting the like button, hit the dislike button if you don't agree with me. That's cool too. And all the comments are welcome. Subscribe to the channel. And for now, Fantasy Clown signing off.